You joined us for Rain of Blood, and together we made it rain bigger and better than we could have ever imagined. So now, join us for a second blazing inferno of knowledge and exploration. You're listening to Rain of Fire, the scorching sequel event to Rain of Blood, where we're going to delve into the world of fire play education and safety as we prepare for the upcoming Rain of Fire event. Join your host, Miss Kitten, Radically Dark, and Ember Solaris as we ignite your curiosity and stoke the flames of passion with discussions, interviews, and authentic insights from around the globe. Together, we're three flames united in one mission to make quality kink education more accessible and open pathways to conversation and connection about edgeplay topics around the world. But before we dive into these sizzling topics, a content warning. Rain of Fire discusses mature themes, explicit content, and practices related to BDSM and fire play. So listener discretion is advised, and this is an adult-only podcast. Other topics may include mental health, trauma, consent, and more. So please be sure you're in a good spot to engage in these topics before continuing to listen. So, grab your fire gear, stoke the flames of curiosity, and let's embark on this crackling journey together. Welcome to Rain of Fire.
Hey, amazing listeners. Welcome back to our Rain of Fire podcast. I'm really excited. I have a experienced fire top in my dungeon today, virtually, of course. I'm in Cape Town, and I would love to welcome Firedom. Firedom, thank you so much for joining us today and chatting about all things that are hot.
Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Where are you based? Where I know that you're in the States, but I'm a little bit unsure about exactly where you're from.
In the United States. I'm from Boise, Idaho, but I just recently moved over here to the North Bay in California.
Okay, those are like strange concepts. Idaho is somewhere I have seen on a couple of movies, but I know very little bit about. The way you're staying at the moment, I know slightly more about. We know a lot about Florida because all crazies come from Florida, and we hear everything in the news about a woman putting her boyfriend in a suitcase, or, you know, all those crazy murder stories come from Florida. So that's probably what we know most about the United States and South Africa.
Well, let me tell you, we really do have some beautiful country. I know Idaho is one of the most beautiful places. They have their own outdoor TV show for hunting and fishing. And if you don't like the weather there, wait 15 minutes or drive for an hour and you're a completely different season. California, I'm finding, is a really beautiful place as well. It's got some amazing weather, and I've never been anywhere where you can be in somebody's backyard and look at a grapefruit tree, a lemon tree, a lime tree, and just nectarines, and just all in the same yard. It's amazing.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Idaho sounds a bit like Cape Town. When people ask me what they must pack to come to Cape Town, I'm like, all the clothes, everything that's in your cupboard, because at 8 o'clock it'll be freezing. By 10 o'clock you'll be in shorts and t-shirt. By 10:15 you'll have 6 jerseys on again and be looking for your rain jacket. So yeah, I feel that in my soul. Firedom, what is your can you just tell my listeners a little bit about your kink journey and how you went from the vanilla to the kink world, and then maybe how you've found fire in this journey?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was an amazing journey. There was a group of us, probably about 30 of us, that would always get together in the summertime a couple of times and go camping and have a really big party. Well, we had known each other forever, and one day I went to this party, and all of a sudden, here's all my friends. So we all kind of kept the anonymity and didn't out anybody, and that's how we didn't know that we were all in the kink community. So it was really amazing one night at this party that all of our friends are there, and all of a sudden we out each other at this party. And I'm working as a bartender one night after that first amazing party, and the lady I was working with said, "Hey, I got to go outside and spin some fire." So I look out the door, and she's doing this big show with her friend, spinning poi and fire staffs. And I was just immediately hooked. So I mentored under them for a couple of years, learning how to breathe fire and play with fire poi and fire staffs. And when I joined the community about that time as well, I was fire time, because it was just fire was all what I was all about. I didn't really dive too much into everything else, but it was just all about fire. And then met some amazing people, started teaching fire, and I think I've been teaching fire and doing fire for about, I want to say 8 years, 10 years. I think it's just, about 10 years. It's just been an amazing journey working with people on fire crosses, suspension fire scenes. It's just amazing. I did this one scene with, I called it the human candle, where I had a couple of girls come out and attack each other with some olive oil and then crawl on the table. And I poured melted wax all over them and used wooden wicks and then blew fire across them to light the wicks. It was a beautiful scene.
Oh, wow. That sounds absolutely amazing. I don't think I've seen fire that much in a kink perspective. I've seen a lot of fire play on the beaches and a lot of poi and flow dance fire stuff more than I've seen kink stuff. We've had some bad experiences. We've nearly burnt the dungeon down. So I'm now restricted to 101 fire stuff, and I'm practicing my safety maneuvers. I'm learning how to roll people up as a burrito in a fire blanket and use a wet towel. And I know that sounds like it is common knowledge to all of you experts, but can I tell you something? The first time you actually hold fire using a wet towel is terrifying, and it doesn't work as well as you expect it to. So I have much less hair on my arm currently. I managed to use the wet towel to put fire everywhere. But by the end of the session, I'd practice. So huge respect for being able to take something like fire, which is a hugely primal force, and mold it a little bit to your will, like use it to light wicks in a situation. I'm dying to ask you about the fire breathing, though. That's something I really haven't seen or experienced. What was that like, and what is it like to do?
It's hot. It's amazing. I have a 6-foot fire staff that I made out of aircraft aluminum with 4 2-inch Kevlar wraps at each end. And I spin that around. And the fuel I use, I won't say over the air, because I don't want anybody burning themselves or getting in trouble with that. But it will not light when it's in its liquid form. So it has to be into a vapor before it lights. So I blow fire through the staff and whatnot, and you can get some really good flames out of that. The ladies that I mentored under were the ones that taught me all about that. And I got to tell you, if you're gonna do anything with fire in this world, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it or how good you are. It is uncontrollable. And if you can remember that fire is uncontrollable, you're gonna do just fine.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've come into my relationship with fire is I have this huge, healthy respect for it. I definitely do not underestimate it on any level. The fear is not as strong as it was in the beginning. There used to be an intense fear and complete adrenaline rush. That's dissipated a little bit. And now there's this enormous healthy respect where, I know I can't do it alone because I don't have the skill. So I always have a spotter and somebody to help me. But it's just such a rush to play with, and it's just such an incredible force. So for people like me, because there are lots of us who currently have no hair on our arms, what are your basic safety standards, and what do you recommend to crazy kittens who are going to go and play with fire?
Well, I believe that first and foremost, no matter how many skills you have, no matter how long you've been doing it, you should always have an extra person standing by that is nothing but safety. That is something that everybody should adopt no matter what.
I love that, and that's something that we don't really see in our local community here. And I think that that's something that I've really taken from speaking to some of the Americans, but the Dutch team also suggested it. So the idea of a spotter is like first and foremost for me, really, I mean, it saved my arm today. If I hadn't had a spotter, I would still be on fire. Or the fire would, or it would have ended in more than just hair loss. But it's really handy, and I think having a way of communicating with that person, like a way of like them identifying what body part is on fire and shouting that at you is also super helpful. And this I know from personal experience, because them just yelling fire at you, you're like, yeah, it's on fire. I know it's on fire. And then they're like, oh, I'm fire. I'm like, oh, my arm is on fire.
Well, I've got to say, sorry. I've got to say, when you get a safety, if you go over, I feel that it's best to negotiate with the safety just as importantly as it is to negotiate with the model. The safety needs to understand where you want them to stand, how you want them to react with different words. Like when I have my safety, I tell them if I look at you, or if I say fire, the word fire, you need to be in there. Or if I say safety, you need to be in there, and I want you on my left at all times. Certain small little details on any scene is going to, in my opinion, save the entire scene. If your spotter or safety is always on your left hand side, because I work from left to right, so I would be down at the foot. If it were to flash back towards the head, my safety is right there. Simple things to keep the model safe is making sure that they don't get off the table and go running if they catch on fire or start burning.
Yeah, you say that. You make it sound so simple, but like your natural reaction is to run.
Absolutely. But you don't want to get up and run, especially if you've got fuel dripping down you, because then you've got fire all over the place and somebody has to tackle you down, and then it becomes an abduction scene.
Yeah, and unless that's negotiated, it's not allowed. I get that. I'm understanding that it needs to be negotiated. And then from a safety perspective, I know nothing about spotters. I'm now desperate to learn as much as I can, so I'm going to use you while I have you on the podcast.
Absolutely.
If you had to call your spotter into the scene, what would you expect them to do at that point?
So in my negotiations with my spotter or safety, I will tell them what words I would use for them to come in. And if something goes awry and I don't say any words, then by all means, please come in. But their main job, in my opinion, needs to be to get in, get the situation under control, and then get back out.
By situation under control, you would mean put out the fire.
Correct. Like with anybody, the fire can flash back over the hand, under the hand, because when you're pushing the fire, you're not actually using your hand to push the fire. You're using the air that is cupped into your hand to push that flame.
Okay, so I understand. So it can just travel back underneath you, and then it will end up with having a whole bunch of oxygen on the other side, which would make it flare up. I kind of understand that. Okay.
Correct, because when you run your trail, when you go over it, you're either pushing it and fanning it out, making it wider, or you're keeping it nice and pushing the flame. All the safety really needs to do is go in there with a towel and wipe that excess alcohol that's on fire off behind your hand if it's out of control, and then get out of the scene and let you continue to go. Now, if it's something simple like that, if it's a bigger flame and bigger flare up, then of course the safety needs to get in there, put the towel onto the model, and continue to make sure that there's no other fuel or anything else that's going to set.
Cool. Thank you so much. Do you have a suggested way of practicing that so that you're not doing it on a model if you say a kitten in Cape Town and you're not very good at it?
Well, I would definitely establish the safe words, if you will, between the safety and the fire top, and practice positioning. So like if you're going to have your model do a certain position on if they're on their back, and they're going to extend one arm above their head, and you're going to go from the tips of their fingers to the tips of their toes on the opposite side of the body, then you kind of want that safety to know that. So the more you practice with the safety, the more that safety gets to know you and gets to know where your runs go and where the potential dangers are. So I would definitely suggest practicing with the same safety every time, and do lots of practice sessions.
Is there a way to practice with the safety and have fire but not have a model?
I don't know as if I've ever thought about doing fire without a model.
Okay.
Possibly like on a countertop that is marble or something like that.
Yeah, I've got a a barbecue area that's got a very safe top that I could use. So I thought maybe that would be a great way just to get everybody used to the idea without me actually putting a human at risk at this point.
Well, you could also make your wands to where they've got a smaller spot and use a real model and just use somebody's leg and practice on the leg. But it's really, I think it's just going to be working with a safety and getting to know that safety. It's kind of like having a fire back. The more you work together, the better things flow.
This whole fire thing's feeling quite like a poly relationship, because I feel like you've got to have this like really good connection with your safety and a really good line of communication, so that's like your like nesting partner, like a really good understanding and a really good way of working together and a really good way of communicating. And then you've got to have the same with your model as well. So I feel like it's as much work as a poly relationship at this point. And it's
well, I wouldn't say a poly relationship, but it is a lot of work. But with anything that is dangerous, you really want to put in the work, honestly.
No, I love that, and I think that's part of the kink is I'm sure it's just because I'm getting older, but I'm sure I'm becoming like an admin kinkster. I think that admin might be my chief kink, and the whole risk mitigation. I think it's also a confidence thing. I think once you work with the medium, I'm already a lot more confident. Somebody advised me to use earbuds as wands for the beginning, just so they were really small, so I could practice. And I feel really comfortable with my earbuds. Like I'm super coping with those. I haven't quite got onto fire ones yet. We don't get them here so easily in our country. You kind of had to donate a kidney to pay for courier to get them from overseas. So I'll save the wand bit for a bit later. But really enjoying the little bits that I get to do. And I think also like the one thing I've learned about safety from all of these amazing Americans who've taught me the stuff over these podcasts is that you've got to be okay with using the tools. And that means you actually have to use them. It means you actually have to practice with them, because it's great to say like, I've got all the kit. And I look cool with the kit on, but can I actually use the wet towel? And even throwing the wet towel, like it was quite interesting when I threw it the first time. I didn't smother the oxygen out, so I left a gap on the one corner at the bottom of the stick that I was using, and the fire came down and the heat came out through the bottom looking for oxygen. So it was just interesting to see that even something like throwing a towel over it is a practiced action.
Right.
It's not something that you're gonna do the first time. So maybe the first time you do it shouldn't be on a live model. But I love your hints for the safety guy. I'm gonna go. I have a latex pony who is my safety man, so I'm gonna go and do some pony training and make a better safety man out of him.
There you go. Wait till you experience having a fire back.
What does that mean?
That's amazing. A fire back. So when I'm doing fire on a model, I've got my safety to my left. And then when I first started doing fire, I had the amazing opportunity to have a fire back. Now, when I'm doing fire, sometimes the wand goes out or I run out of fuel and I have to break connection with that model and turn around and redo my wands, get them lit back up, and then turn back around and go back into the scene, right?
Yeah.
Well, with a fire back, he's not just a a fireback. He's also a safety. He doubles as a safety. So you kind of have two safeties at that point. But a fireback, as I'm doing my wands, he's watching my wands and seeing which one's going to go out, which one needs fuel, and which one needs to be replaced. And when he sees one that needs to be replaced, whether it's a lit or not lit, I just put my hand up, or he says something, he replaces the wand without me turning around, and I go right back to the scene, and the whole process takes 3 seconds.
Oh, wow.
So I never lose contact with my bottom. And I have a video of that for presentation. I just can't get enough of it put together. So I'm still working on all that.
I love that. My poly family and my fire poly family in my head just got one person bigger. I do a lot in the dungeon with sharp things, and I always have a second. And my second, I call her Mother Russia. She's just fantastic. She's like, she can read my mind. She knows if I need another needle, or if I need a piece of thread, or if I need whatever it is. And it's always at my side, ready to go before I've even asked for it. So I understand the concept quite well. I'm now plotting an extra member of my poly fire family, and I'm going to make sure that person is in my future. The girl can dream.
Oh, it's amazing.
So to do this, there's obviously certain things that come in before the fireplace starts. We always talk about consent and negotiation, and consent being the foundation of what we do in BDSM. Is there anything that is fire specific in the consent negotiation? And is there, that you should maybe tell a kitten to add to her list of consent questions? Is there anything that really sticks out to you as fire specific in kink in the negotiation process?
As far as that goes, I think one of the most important things is to let my model know and gain permission for my safety and my fireback to put their hands on my safety if needed. Some people... Some models, and I've only had one, but and that's why I speak from this type of experience. When I'm doing my scene, sometimes that model is in subspace and doesn't realize that there's a chance that somebody else could be touching them, and all of a sudden they like kind of, what's going on? I'm feeling 4 or 5 hands on me, because they're not used to the heat anymore, because they've gone into subspace. So there's a chance that they can freak out because there's more people touching them than what they had gone into it with.
That's a super great point. I'm definitely adding that to my list of consent negotiation questions, and it's not something that I would have thought about. So thank you. That's really added value. When you work in the fire community, are there any misconceptions or any challenges that you face in the kink community with playing with fire?
I think some of the challenges I find or run into is gaining the trust of newer models, newer people in the community, because they think that it's, once I get you on my table and I do a little bit of fire on you, that automatically I think I can fuck you. And that's just... Sex and fire and alcohol and fire are not things that I've ever thought really meant to merge together.
Yeah,
my personal opinion anyways. It's a very erotic, very sensual thing, and I think if you add sex into the scene, it just ruins it. Same with alcohol.
I think so. The alcohol thing I want to chat about first. Like, I'm obviously a shops top, so I have a 0 tolerance policy for substances and alcohol in my space.
Absolutely.
Just simply because it really doesn't add any value. And if you're not 100% present and I'm about to pierce your skin, I'm not doing you justice. You're not doing yourself justice. And the other thing is, I want to play with someone who's 100% present, who can tell me this is enough and check out, and we can call red and stop the scene. Like, that's super important to me. So if you have had any substances that affect that judgment call, it's just not a good day to do shops with me. So I really respect and value that, because I think fire is probably, from a timing perspective, I can have a sandwich between needles. As a sharps top, as a fire top, I'm not quite sure you could have a snack and do fire at the same time. I'm not saying that I do that, but I'm just saying fire timing is so quick that you've got to be super present. And when accidents go wrong, like the difference between swiping it and a burn is like 2 seconds. Well, in my experience anyway.
Yes.
So
Right.
super
And also in
important.
your negotiations at a party when doing fire, you got to make sure that person wasn't just in another room doing electro play or something else, and make sure that instead of eating that sandwich that they're drinking lots of water. Hydration, temperature, and humidity are the three most like important things when doing a fire scene.
It talks to me a little bit about hydration. I love that because that ticks my boxes as a needle top too. Because number one, for that beautiful canvas that we're working on to have any chance of any repair, the better hydrated your skin is, the better chance you have of repairing quickly. So hydration becomes like a number one for me too, from a needle top point of view. Like I'm like 2 weeks before the scene, I'm already like, are you drinking 2 liters of water? Like, this is your daily check-in. I want to see the bottle empty. So it's hugely important just from a self-care routine. If you're playing with sharps and stuff, it just really helps promote your healing. What is the hydration doing in a fire scene?
It actually hydrates the skin, so it helps for the runs, for the fire runs, and it helps the model not be so dehydrated after the scene, because the fire takes a lot out of you. So the more hydrated you are, the better your skin reacts to everything, and the better the fire runs on you.
Oh, wow. I'm learning lots. I've written that down.
You add that to the temperature of the room has to be pretty warm, because any type of goosebumps or anything like that on a woman's skin or man's skin in your model period is going to ruin that as well. The humidity and temperature in the room is what decides how fast that alcohol evaporates off the skin, and that evaporation rate is what's catching on fire, not the alcohol itself.
Oh, wow. Okay. That is clever. I am making notes. You mentioned something a little while ago about, that it's incredibly intimate, that you're sharing a huge amount of vulnerability and intimacy, and that it's essential play, but it's not a sexual play as much as it is intimate. And I can relate to that so much, because I think there is I have to say, I tried to get a couple of fire players who are not into kink to come on air and talk to me about fire play and about their experience with fire. And as soon as I mentioned BDSM or kink, they were like, hell no, we don't do sex and fire. I was like, BDSM is not about sex. She's like, yeah, but it's about threesomes and stuff. I was like, first of all, I really don't think like BDSM is threesomes. And I promise you, there are no strap-ons going to be mentioned. We're not going to talk about sex. And we're just trying to educate the community to give them a bit of a gold standard, because these guys are going to play with fire regardless. So it'd be nice if they had some resources so that when they did play with fire. But it was so interesting to see that everyone's automatic reaction, like a complete vanilla, was just like, BDSM is about sex. And in all my kink experience, my kink journey, it's definitely not about sex for me, because my needles are so sterile and the environment is sort of so almost disinfected to the nth degree. It's an incredible intimacy. It's the ability of you sharing space, but also I feel like I'd take advantage of somebody if I was going to add sex to that, because I've almost just trauma bonded with them. So to then add sex to that, it just wouldn't. It doesn't feel ethical to me either. It just feels like
it's dirty.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, for me, it's a medical thing. Like, I like everything to be really disinfected and clean and neat and in rows. And like I said, admin is my kink. But so, the idea of being thrown across my table and everything spilling over would be that just wouldn't sit well in my head at all. You'd mess up my medical room. I'd be horrified.
Right.
But so that would just not work for me. But I think it's more than that. That intimacy is so valuable to me. It's such a privilege to be able to play with it with somebody and share that moment, that it's enough. I don't need to add anything else to it.
Right. So there's one way I start that intimacy I wanted to add in there. So some people, when they get together with a model or a new model, or even a model they've done fire on before, there's some sort of a minute or two where they kind of click and get into sync. For me, what I like to do is I will put you on my table and I will get some hot oil and I will massage your body, that oil into your body to help the fire run. And I only use olive oil. We could go into different temperatures and flash points, but I think extra virgin olive oil is the best. So I massage the entire body. So not only do you get fire play, you get a full body hot oil massage. And while I'm doing that, I'm not just giving you a massage. I'm looking at your body. I'm checking for moles. I'm checking for fresh tattoos, because any tattoos within the last couple of years, you don't want to do fire over. I'm looking at scars, stretch marks, any type of wounds, razor burn, sunburn, everything. So it helps me get in tune with the model and learn that model's body.
Yeah, I can understand that. For me, it's disinfectant and a cloth, but it's the same story. It's how's the skin reacting underneath this? What, if they've got a shave, a razor burn, you can see it with the disinfectant. It'll go bright red. Is there an area that's more sensitive? Is there a bruise? Is there somewhere I need to avoid? So I can completely relate to that. It's just for me, it's about preparing my canvas.
Yes, absolutely.
My poor blood bags are having a good giggle at this. But, for me, it's just about understanding the surface that I'm working on. And for me, the skin becomes the canvas that I'm creating on. So it's really important. And every skin has a different texture as well. So understanding the texture also helps me be able to work with the skin at a later point. I'm interested to know what the oil does in the fire play. Does it help the fire move or travel or...
So that comes back to the hydration point.
Okay.
So when I get a model on the table, I'll check out the skin, and if they're really dry skin, because you can't put lotion on before you do fire play. The day of fire play, there can be no lotions, potions, hairsprays, makeup, nothing. Everything has to be all natural.
I can understand why. And I think also most lotions are water-based, and that water would then heat up and cause steam, which would be a problem.
Correct. It has to do with the temperatures and the flash points and stuff like that. So the olive oil actually will help your hand glide across the body, and it'll help the alcohol sit there and evaporate a little bit more. It keeps the skin protected a little bit more than just dry skin.
Okay. That's super interesting. Probably 5 years in my future of fireplay, but super interesting.
Well, next time you do some fireplay on somebody, do one leg with the oil and one leg without the oil, and you just want a tiny bit on there. You don't want a lot.
How hot does the olive oil get? We have my favorite fetish is bastinado. Like, I'm obsessed with bastinado. I don't get to do it very often because apparently I hit quite hard. But I just absolutely adore bastinado. And my favorite thing to do with bastinado is to take a bowl of olive oil, and then after I've tormented the human and they think it's over and they're still tied to my table, I like to brush their feet with olive oil because it lulls them into like a false sense of security. And then I like to take a hairdryer and heat the olive oil on their feet. And then once it's really, really, really hot, then I like to do bastinado. So that's like my favorite kink. So if you could do olive oil on the feet and then some fire play on the feet and then do bastinado, how hot does that oil get?
You should be fine. If you take a look, I don't know the exact flash point of olive oil, but when it comes to the different types of oils and everything else, I think that it has a pretty high flash point and will resist the heat enough for you to get all of that in.
Yeah, cool. I'm gonna. That's like a future plan.
It'd be interesting to see.
Me and my poly family. Guys, I have a new idea. Oh, they hate my for science stuff. I can see the whole family cringing. How do you educate and inform others about fireplay in order to lessen stigma and misconceptions?
Well, I do teach classes. an old friend of mine, when we were both living in Boise, we taught quite a few classes, and I think it took us, I want to say 2 full days to write out the syllabus before we started the classes.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
we were able to write everything down and really get a good way to teach people.
Great. Yeah, I think the more we can educate, hence the reason for Rain of Fire. Partly because I am without a massive fire community, so I need to connect for my own safety with other fire players. But also because it's nice to have a resource that you can send newbies to, and there are a lot of communities like mine that just don't have the mental resources or the in-person resources. So it's really great that people like yourself and others are educating so that people like us in Africa don't burn each other. I think it's hugely important. If you were going to give some advice to a kitten in Cape Town about exploring fire on her own, what would your advice be?
I would say always have a safety on hand and do as much practice as you can. 1 wand, 2 wands, get some panther felt and make some wands.
Panther felt. What is, it's a term I haven't heard before. Can you tell me what that is?
Okay, so panther felt is I don't even know what kind of material it is, to be honest with you. It's a thick black type of felt that doesn't burn real fast, and it's really, really soft. You can cut it into any shape you want, which I like. I prefer a type of hourglass shape is what I've adopted. It lasts for a really long time. The set I think I've had for 10 years.
I love that.
And they're just now getting to the point to where I need to replace them.
I love that. I love hearing about that. That was one thing that I really found. I find one of my absolute fascinations are anything that has a history. So I have hunt whips that are over 100 years old, and I have not an electro machine, a violet one that is also over 100 years old. Like I have like a collection of all these toys, and it just like, it's not often that you hear about toys that are 15 years old, especially toys that are working as hard as a wand. But that also means that you're taking care of them, and that you're looking after them. So what is important from a tool perspective to make sure that mine last as long as yours have? What do I need to watch out for, and what do I need to do to keep them from being destroyed?
My wands I keep in a plastic bag with a few paper towels in there. I don't ever rinse them out or nothing like that. And if they do need to be rinsed a little bit, then I just use alcohol, fresh alcohol. I never use the same alcohol for 2 different models, so I make sure that the wands are good and air dried. And I don't close up the plastic bag. I just kind of let them breathe in the air for however long it takes to go from one model scene to the next.
Okay, that's interesting that you don't use the same alcohol. Is there a reason for that from a disinfectant reason, or what is the reason that you use a different alcohol?
Well, I usually use 70% alcohol, and any scene is from 30 minutes to an hour. I personally don't really like to go more than an hour on one model, but you got to understand that model is sweating, you're sweating, your hands are all over those wands, getting them wrung out to the perfect saturation level to do your scene. And at the end of that scene, if you've ever looked at the alcohol, turned on the light and looked at the alcohol, it kind of starts to turn black.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting all of that person's, yeah,
okay.
right. You're continuously dipping from back and forth from body to wand into the alcohol. So that person's sweat and everything else gets onto those wands and into that alcohol. So if you rinse them out real good in the alcohol at the end of the scene, dump the alcohol out, and use fresh alcohol for the next model, you're doing that much better and doing a service, not a disservice.
Okay, I don't, like, really value that. I obviously haven't got to the point where I've done fire for an hour or have used the model. So these are things that you are helping future kitten, so that I don't make these mistakes. And I have a whole page of notes that I've written while chatting to you. So
That's
but
awesome.
that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. How do you see your fire play evolving and changing, and what's next for you as a fire top?
Well, I started out blowing fire and playing with fire staff and moved on to topping fire and then teaching fire. Now I am doing fire on a fire cross, like the traditional cross that you would whip somebody on.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about that, because I have absolutely no, like, the fantasy in my head is like a crucifixion right now, and of course I'm a needle top,
Yes.
so there were needles through there were nails through the hands in my fantasy automatically, but I'm quite sure that doesn't really happen. But maybe you can tell me a little bit more about it.
So a little while back, I had a venue that I called the Fireplace. And one of the parties I held, the last scene that I did, I had a girl tied to a cross, standing up, and we were doing fire play on her. And then my safety and I, he put on a glove, an UV glove that was on fire, and he would literally wipe all the way down her back and body, and I would use my towel to put it out.
Tell me about this glove. I haven't had any exposure to this glove. I need to know these things. Tell me more about the glove.
Well, tell me about this glove right now.
Yeah, future kitten needs to know about that glove.
So there's different types of gloves. Don't get one that has any type of rubber on it or grip on it. But there are some wool gloves that you can get, or I think they're 100% cotton ones as well, which are better to get. But you get a cotton glove and you put it on and you get a little bit of alcohol on the fingers and you light that on fire and then you wipe it on a person and then another person, because there has to be somebody there to put the fire out, with a towel. You don't want to try to use another hand to put that fire out.
No,
but it gets really big. Crossed. Yeah, it gets really big, really hot, and just really intense, really fast. But it was an amazing scene. It was an amazing scene. That girl really appreciated it.
Oh wow, I have so much to aspire to. Like, this is like 5-year plans, but I'm definitely gonna get a glove to my shopping list. I've loved chatting to you. I've loved chatting to you. Thank you so much for letting me hear your voice and letting me connect. It's really cool to know that there's community out there that's prepared to share so openly, and it's a privilege for someone like me in Cape Town to be able to chat to someone with all this experience. And I'm just a bit blown away by how open you guys all are about sharing, and how approachable you've all been. And I'm quite sure that if anybody wants to reach out to you, that you would be quite approachable. So
absolutely.
You want to just tell them how they can reach out to you. I'm going to drop the bio in the link in your bio, so it will go up with the show notes. But if they don't have the app on their phone, they might not get the bio. So maybe just tell them how they can reach out if they would like to.
So it'd be FireDom at FetLife, or would you like me to give an email?
No, you don't have to give an email. These guys are all on FetLife. They're dodgy gangsters. Yeah. They've all been following us on FetLife, so that's where they'll find the link. Otherwise, I think the more you can, the more information you can get, the better. So I think that the one thing I've learned about these guys in the community is they are really, really approachable. So if there's questions that you need to ask, please reach out and chat to somebody, because doing it on your own is not ideal when it comes to playing with fire. I'll be the first one to tell you that, with bow hair on my arms. And just thanks for your time. So it was really great to chat to you.
No problem. Thank you for reaching out. I had a good time.
Cool. And to all my listeners, I hope you're having a blaze of a day. And I hope you're getting lit from my dungeon to yours. Lots of love and kitten kisses.